Hey everyone, welcome to our weekly live stream talking all talking all about mules and donkeys. How you doing, Steve?
Hey, another good day, buddy. Yeah, we fly out tomorrow. We're heading to Indianapolis, Indiana for the Hoosier Horse Fair. It
That's
is
going to be a
so
lot
much
of
fun.
fun. Have you been
Oh,
to that
yeah.
one before?
Yes, I have. Yeah, it's been about 5 years ago, and I just got another invite. They told me I was the second most asked for clinician for that program, so I was really happy with that.
That's very good. So, folks, my name's Dave Shrine. This is Steve Edwards. Every week we come to you from Arizona, Queen Valley Mule Ranch. Of course, I'm a city slicker, so I'm in the city a little bit more than Steve is. But from Queen Valley Mule Ranch, just to talk about mules, donkeys, ask whatever questions you have. And we've got quite a few questions that have come in this last week. Tons and tons of Facebook messages and Facebook posts come in, and I know you continue to get calls. So we'll hop into it here in a second. But if this is your first time ever joining us, welcome. Really glad. This live stream is all about you guys. Without questions, we're not here. We're not doing this. So thank you for sending in your questions. And if you have any questions that you want asked, we give priority to questions that come in live. So I've got a list here. I showed my laptop last week. I got my laptop here this week. I've got a list of different questions, but anybody that has those questions that's watching live, put them in there. We will get to those as fast as possible and hopefully get you set in the direction you need to go with your mule, with your donkey, with your tack, with your trail riding, whatever the case might be. So yeah, this is all about you. Keep the comments active. The first question that I want to ask is not for Steve. It's for you guys. Where are you watching from today? And let's do the same one we did last week. Where are you watching from, and what is the weather like where you're at? I know out here in Arizona, we've had some clouds, but I'm looking outside right now. It's been around 90 this week. How is the weather out there on the ranch, Steve?
93 degrees right now. We've got a nice breeze going through. And we've been cleaning up around the ranch, trimming up trees. We're concerned about fire danger. We've had right around 0.8% in almost 8 months, and that's it.
Yeah.
And fire danger is pretty heavy, so we've been cleaning up a bunch around here and trying to make sure we're fire safe.
Yeah, very little moisture. I see all my friends and family who are in Seattle, and they're always like, it's always raining. I'm like, send it down here. We would love to have some rain.
Yeah, that's right.
So
right.
On the stream so far, we've got Patty Brown. Hi, Patty. We're glad that you're here. Cindy Calloway. Patty says, I wish I could be there in Indiana for the Hoosier Expo. That would be a lot of fun. We got a question right away from Nikki Brem. We'll get to that. Yolanda Poland from the Netherlands is watching. Nice sunny hat, Steve. Patty says, or question from Patty. We'll get to that. She says she's watching from Michigan. Let's see. And Yolanda says Netherlands, Europe, and it's pouring rain this afternoon. It's 7.5 degrees Celsius degrees right now and 33 midnight. So she is just on the other side of the day. So it's Wednesday where she's watching from.
Yeah.
So let's get to it. The first question that we have comes from Nikki, who's watching. And Nikki says, what kind of exercises can be done to lighten up the front end of a 17-year-old mule? Tends to trip a lot. Nikki from Michigan. So what do you have to say about that one there, Steve?
Oh, when a mule is tripping in the front end, there are a lot of things going on. Number one, Nikki, are you shoeing your mule? That's one question. Number two, saddle placement is incredible. The amount of people who call me with mules tripping, their saddles, and even before them, but their saddles sitting on top of the scapula, and the animals have lots of different problems. So I would ask those two questions. If we can see a picture of the saddle sitting on the mule, that'd be great. But that's when a mule's tripping in the front end, we look at shoes first, trimming. We make sure we're at the same angle. Anytime you trim your mules and shoe them, or just trim them, you always want to do it, your angles, according to the slope of the shoulder. So the slope of the shoulder dictates that. The downside is the back side of the mule's hooves are softer than the front half. So they wear down quicker and you have less of a heel. and then take this as your foot right here. This is called the quarters from here back. And that's usually the part where it starts to shrink in. So when one isn't been trimmed properly and they have contracted heels, the frog is now smaller, and the frog pumps blood up and down the leg. And if you don't have good blood going up and down the leg, it's like a tire that don't have proper air. It's not going to go down the road right. And that's the first thing I would go to with your mule. Tell us, Patty's a Patty.
This was Nikki.
Nikki, are you shoeing your mules?
So let's see here. Nikki, that's a great follow-up question for you. So go ahead and send that in. Give us a little bit more information. And one of the things that I say every single week, and I'm going to keep saying it, and the more that I've said it, the more it's happened, is we want to see pictures of your mules, of your donkeys. As you're asking these questions, it's amazing how great what type of great feedback Steve can give just by looking at a photo. So whatever photos, whatever images you have, feel free to send those in, and Steve can give you awesome commentary. So while we're waiting for Nikki to chime back in, we've got Josephine Earp from, where are you from, Josephine? She says, hi, Steve. I think that's the first question. You know Josephine? Yes,
Josephine Earp.
Earp.
Yeah, she's Wyatt Earp's great-great-granddaughter.
No kidding.
Anyway, yeah, she's on the west side, and a great gal. Mule rider, her and her husband are great people.
Patty chimes in. She says, my mule isn't tripping, but his heels are turning in. What would you say about heels that are turning in?
Well, heels that are turning in, Patty, are contracted heels. And that's the problem. You see, we think we can ride the mule and keep the mule without shoeing them. You see, when those heels, here's the heels, when they start coming in, that's called contraction. And when you get contraction of the heel, that means your frog's going to be small. Folks, it's imperative. You know, you don't have to keep them shod all the time, but if you don't shoe them properly, those heels are going to come in. Don't listen to folks that say you don't have to shoe your mule. You better. Now, by the way, Dave, I've got a friend, remember Jeff Kinney from Globe?
Mm-hmm.
He's got a mule, and his heels are severely contracted. So I would like to shoot some video for YouTube and for other people so that people can see what you do to fix that. It's probably the biggest structural problem we have with our mules. So if they're contracted, Patty, get that mule to a farrier that knows how to do shoeing that is going to be responsive to fixing it. Now, I would be happy to talk to any shoer, tell them how to fix it, but usually if they're a good farrier, they know how to fix a contracted heel.
Awesome. So hopefully that gives you guys a little bit more information there. I haven't seen a follow-up from Nikki, so maybe she wasn't able to join us live. Maybe she just wanted to get her question in there. So, Nikki, as you watch that answer and you go ahead and come up with any follow-up questions or follow-up information. Oh, here we go. He is only shod 2 to 3 times a year. Trips whether he is shod or barefoot. Saddle is set up behind the withers scapula. What do you say there?
How long have you had the mule?
Yeah. So next question there, Nikki. How long have you had the mule? And is there any other information that you would want to know from her?
Here's the thing. When, people buy mules, but we don't know the history behind the mule. So this Patty and everybody else, you see, it's just like any other type of lameness or illness. It doesn't just happen. It is coming. So conceivably, it could have been this. It could have been the saddle on top of the scapula back before they got the mule. It could be that as whoever it is doing the shoeing is like 3 times a year. That's not enough. And shoeing is not fixing the problem, okay? Just putting shoes on is one thing. But you have to be able to shoe in such a way so that you fix it. If the heels are turning in, the farrier is not doing a correct job.
So there you go, Nikki. So moving right along, Patty says, I purchased your come-along rope. I'll be trying it on my mule this weekend, which leads me to a question that I have, Steve. Of course, you sell a come-along rope, and so we're not here to just talk about your stuff, but you do sell a come-along rope. If somebody were to get a come-along rope, what are the attributes that they really want? Can they just use any rope, any twine, anything like that? What are the attributes that they're going to want in that rope, whether it be yours or anybody else's? Can you just share a little bit about that?
Okay, you're going to want 3 strands. It's light strands, and the 3 strands together make a rope that's thin and floppy and it's easy to use, but it's also wax coated, and it's going to be around 24 feet. And the idea, I mean, you can use any rope, and matter of fact, when I do my babies, when I first imprint babies, I use twine on them because I just want them to move slightly. But the downside is, if you've got a mule that doesn't want to respond, the problem is you're really using your arm and you're really bumping on the mule to get it to pay attention. And the downside is, if it's not wax coated, it crawls up the nose because it gets loose and tight and loose and tight. So I used to tell people before, take a lariat rope and take 1 strand out of it, and then that would be good enough. And it's okay, it works okay, and it's 2 strand, but if it's waxed, it does better. And believe me, folks, by the time you go through the work of making the rope and waxing it, you wish you had spent $20 for the come-along rope. You know, it's time-consuming. Awesome. And all you have to do on my come-along ropes is just keep it waxed, especially right there in that first 6 foot of putting the come-along rope on. But people tell me, Dave, I get emails and text and phone calls, just hourly almost on that come-along hitch, saying, "Wow, it really works." And folks, that's the whole thing. Is with your bits or with your halters, any of this stuff, they've got to have respect for it. And here's what I want you to get in your mind is, like, for instance, you want to load your donkey in the trailer. You don't need to sugarcoat everything to go in the trailer. He's not going because he doesn't have respect for the halter. He's not crossing over a piece of plywood. He's not following you and this sort of thing because he has no respect for the halter. So, you know, don't try to do it with candies and all this stuff, or put a carrot on the end of the stick. It's not going to work. They've got to be halter foundational training, and that's where the come-along rope, along with the Problem Mule video, really helps you out.
So really quick, you mentioned that they need to keep their come-along rope waxed the last 6, the end 6 feet of that. How do you keep a rope waxed? Is there a special way? Is there a special wax that you need to buy?
Yeah, what I usually do is I've got a leather glove, and I kind of put the wax in it, rub it in there really good, like paraffin wax, and then I put it on the rope with the leather glove. It's much like a bull rider or a bronc rider gets his rope ready where he waxes it down to be able to hold in when he's riding the broncs. So with the leather glove, with the wax, rub it on there really good, and you got her made.
Awesome. Steve, you've got a fan of the hat.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, Christine Snelleberg says, Dave, tell Steve he is a cutie with that hat on.
Hey, Christine, there's my mule girl. Oh, she makes an old man feel young, you know. I got it. Good to hear from you, Christine. Christine was my main mule rider there in Southern Equine Expo, which was an awesome expo. Really enjoyed it. Had a lot of great people. But Christine just went all out. She tried to learn. She tried to go. She come and spent time with us. She's awesome.
That's great.
Good to see you, Christine.
Yeah, we're glad to have you here, Christine. Let's see. Patty says, mine likes to be a bully unless I have a bit in his mouth. He is 15 years old and 7.2. Big boy.
You mean 17.2?
17.2 hands, I guess. 17,
yeah. It wouldn't be 7, okay?
Oh, I misspoke. 17.
Yeah, he'd be knee high. So a bit in his mouth. So from the ground or in the saddle?
That's a good question for you, Patty. Are we talking about from the ground or in the saddle? While Patty's getting that one, she says yes. So maybe both. While she's clarifying that, I've got another question that I want to ask you. This is one that comes in a lot, and I'd really love to hear your thoughts on this. We have a lot of folks who are out there looking to buy their first or their next mule or donkey, and we got a lot of folks asking, Steve, can you help me buy that? Can you be the one that kind of connects me with, the right mule or the right donkey to buy? So my question is, can people contact you and have you help them buy a mule or donkey? And what steps would you give them? Where would you point them along that process?
Here's the problem with this, Dave, is, people want to get a mule because they hear how good they are and how safe they are and how easy they are to take care of. And that's not all the truth. And the problem is I don't know them. I don't know how they ride. They may tell me they ride 30 years. I don't know the mule. Their mule has probably been all over the mountains and done hundreds of miles, yada, yada. You see, it's important that, number one, you get educated. You, the rider, you, the buyer of the mule, the donkey, you get educated before you buy and make the purchase. And that way, that education will help you to be able to make the right purchase. I have, from time to time, had people say, hey, Steve, I'm getting ready to buy this mule. Would you take a look at the pictures and stuff? And I'll look at the pictures. And I'll tell them what I feel can be some future problems. And it has a lot. Hey, are we there? Hello, Dave. Doggone it.
Okay. Yes, sound back. What? All right, let's see here. Are you there, Steve? Can you hear me? All right. See if we can get him back here. I feel like this is the news bloopers
Are
on
we there?
YouTube. Yeah, I'm here. Can you push the button to get your camera on there for me?
Yeah. Push the button for the camera right there.
There we go. Hey, there he is.
What did I do? Push the wrong button or what?
Well, no. What happened is my computer. I've got a state of the art computer, but every now and again, I guess Skype just gets a little bit finicky, and so it just randomly shut down. I actually think we should consider ourselves pretty lucky in that we've done this 6, 7, 8 times now, and this is the first time that Skype has just shut down. She goes, Dave, you better hurry and fix, or Steve's going to go riding.
You bet.
All right. Can everybody hear Steve okay? Can everybody hear me okay? You can hear me, right, Steve?
Oh, yeah, I can hear you just fine. Doing good. My
right.
golly.
So we'll start that question over again from wherever I think I lost you. I loved that Steve's hat, but didn't know that you were Amish. Tell us about that hat real quick, Steve.
This is a buckaroo hat, and buckaroo are the cowboys that are in Montana, northern Sierras, Nevada, this sort of thing. The buckaroo hat, if you notice in the back here, it turns up in the back like this, okay? And that is when you're riding a bronc and you're way back like this, your head hits the rump of the mule and bends it up. So that's traditional, but these hats are the buckaroo type hats. When you come into Arizona, and of course they're like this. And so the guys that have the persuasion to have this kind of a hat call this a taco hat. And then the guys that have this kind of hat call this a pancake hat. You know, so but it's not Amish by any means. It's buckaroo. Buckaroos wear chinks. Buckaroos wear their boots up high. They wear a lot of silver and this sort of thing. Their horses and their mules are phenomenally trained. And then we throw what's called a long loop. It's 60 foot of rope. And it's a big loop, and we make it up really big, and we throw 60. We got 60 foot of rope, so it's really easy for us to throw 30 to 40 foot of rope at a time. They're a lot of people consider them the elite cowboy.
There you go. So now you know. Knowing's half the battle. So let's get back to this question about Steve. Can you help me? Can you help me buy my next mule or donkey? Let's pick up at the part where you said, now from time to time, you've had folks send you pictures and say, hey, will you take a look before I purchase this mule or donkey? Pick up right there and tell us, from there on out.
Yeah, I've looked at animals so much over the years, and I watched their stride. I watched their walk as they're walking, the conformation, how they look. I see their eyes, I see their ears, I see how they're standing, and I know a happy mule, I know a crippled mule, and I know a mule that's been pushed. Anyway, I know all these different things because I've watched them over the years. And people, they say, oh, I'm going to get a mule because they're safe. I'm going to get a mule because they don't have to maintain them much. And I'm going to get a mule because I can go anywhere with them, and they're unique. Just lots of different things. But here's the problem. Go get education. Go to clinics. All right? Get education. Read the books. Watch the YouTube stuff. Whatever you can get, start building the vocabulary. Because here's the problem. I don't know you or how you know how to ride. I don't know the mule and what type of training it is. Just because that mule he's 14 years old and has been all over the mountains does not mean a thing to me. What means something to me is foundational training. I'll give you an idea. I used to take my mules and I would go to clinics and I would do clinics, and here'd be my mules. And I'd get on my mule. Donut was one of my mules, and boy, she was an awesome mule. And I'd climb on old Donut, and she would stand still and quiet. And I would just sit there for a minute, and then I would back her up a couple steps, and I would go to the right, and I'd go to the left. I'd side pass. I'd turn on forehand. In other words, in less than a 20-foot circle, you could see the mule was trained. If a mule is trained, you can go anywhere with these mules, do anything with them. Absolutely. But there again, do you know how to ride a trained mule? Now, then I would say to the audience, I'd say, who's been riding 25 years? And the hands would go up, So I get down there and I put somebody on a mule that's supposed to know how to ride. And Dave, in less than 15 minutes, that mule looked like it was not broke, And then they would start putting the blame on the mule. And it wasn't it. So I don't mind giving some advice to people. I will look at pictures. I will watch videos. And that's what I would do. It's kind of funny, Dave. I've had people actually accuse me of just being in this business to sell saddles only. How many trainers do you know that takes their time to do this, or to personally call you, not to pat myself on the back?
No, yeah.
But I really want to help, It happens, and of course, I hear it all the time. Oh, he's just in there for the money. I don't know what more I can do to show you that it's not that. I'm in it to help the mule.
Yeah.
I hear people say they're in it for the mule. Well, if they were in it for the mule, they would do things to help the mule. It's really poor. So when I watch pictures and videos, I can give you an idea. And let me tell you, Dave, I've only, out of all these years, I can count on one hand and say where I actually saw the mule, touched the mule, watched the rider, and say those 5 people out of 40 years, it was a good match. The downside is, folks, you got to have education, and that's what I try to do. That's what other clinicians that really want to try. There's a lot of places out there, a lot of people that will train and watch them and listen to them. But listen, first of all, the mule and the donkey and the horse are different. They got different mindsets. So you got to make sure that when you're getting into this, you're getting into it thinking about training on the mule and the donkey. Now the donkey and the mule are very similar, but I when people call me all the time, well, you know where to go, Steve. No, actually, I don't, because these days there are more people selling mules than I've ever seen in my life. You see, the horse market went tank, and so all the money from the horse market went down the tube. So now people are seeing the mule market and the donkey market, and they are now taking and selling the mules and donkeys. The downside is, Dave, the mule and the donkey's paying the price.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, the first stream that we did, we really didn't have we didn't know what this was going to look like. We didn't really know how it was going to go, if anybody was even going to hop on. And that was back in January, and we got to talk. I just started talking about tack and saddles and things like that. At the end of that stream, you said we had pushed bye-bye, I pushed finish, and we were just finishing up privately on Skype. And you had said, "Hey, I'm fine talking about my tack and stuff, but I really, really want to answer questions from people. That's really what I want to do here." I said, "Awesome. I'll just start collecting as many questions as possible." So I've heard you say from time and time again that you never got into the business to make saddles. You never planned on making saddles, planned on making tack, but it was that passion for the animal itself that said, look, if nobody's going to do it the right way, I'm going to do it the right way. And even to this day, you continue to make adjustments based upon what you see, what you learn. And so this is me talking. This isn't Steve talking. This is me talking. That I just want to affirm that that's really what we're here for, is to answer questions and make sure people get the education that they need before they go and they get $20,000 deep into an animal that's a sorry mule that can't be fixed. You were going to say something, Steve?
No, you're exactly right. It's fun. I talk to several people a day. I'll take in the morning to make phone calls, in the afternoon to make phone calls, and try to work and do ranch work during the midday and this sort of thing. But it's fun to hear people say, wow, we haven't even been turning the TV on. We've been watching your YouTube stuff, and we really learned a lot. And I hate to have people say this, but they say, I've been doing it wrong all these years. Well, you may not have been doing it wrong, and I'm certainly not doing it right. Okay, I'm forever trying, but these things I have found that I know work, that are consistent, and that's what I want to show you. So when we designed these saddles, we did it with going through a lot of saddles, a lot of mules, trying to figure out the bits. The DVDs I did simply because people couldn't remember what I taught them. Of course, I mean, that happens. I mean, it was 40 years of making mistakes for me, right? So I did the video so people could remember. They can pull it out and look at it. Now they can have their computer out there or their little screen and go, oh, that's how it's done. And wow, the way it goes, it's awesome. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
We're glad for everybody being here. We're glad for everyone who we've been able to reach through these live streams before, and all the people that'll come after. And speaking of which, we have Carla Howe hopping on. She says hello.
Hi, Carla.
Eileen Easterday chiming in. Eileen actually sent a message through Facebook before we went live. She says, are you guys doing a live stream today? She was looking forward to it, and she's here watching from Nebraska, and we're super happy to have you, Eileen. Thank you for joining in.
Yeah, awesome.
So let's see here. Let me scroll back with that little hiccup that we had. I got a little bit lost here. Let's see. Cindy Calloway says, that's so true. I didn't know much about my mule when I got him. I did have experience with a war bridle. Johnny tried a few, let me take this lead rope from you, so I put a war bridle on him, stopped that right away. He learned real fast. I wasn't going to put up with that. Now he just follows me. I've been battling Thrush and have had him 5 years from now. I have used bleach, Thrush products. Any answers?
No, thrush is tough because here's the problem with thrush is it's an organism that we haven't been able to figure out, and it's in the moisture, it's in the urine, it's in the manure and stuff. The cleaner you can keep your corrals, the better, and this sort of thing. The bleach is the best way, and it's really a shame because this is a real powdery, bad smelling thing, and the best thing you can do is to keep your feet trimmed short, especially during the wintertime. Keep them trimmed short, and that way that stuff doesn't stay packed up in there. And as much as you can, try to have them in a dry lot. But digging them out and bleaching them, bleach I found works the best. I've tried everything else. If it's really bad, you can put a shoe on with a rubber pad and fill it full of pine tar and linseed oil, and I find that's about the closest to any type of medication that'll work.
Awesome. So hopefully that helps there. The next question that I have comes from Kevin Meredith, who's watching again. Kevin, we're so glad that you're here. Thanks for hanging out. He says, do you use slick shoes or grit on them?
Actually, if I'm in the ice, like when I was up at the Grand Canyon, we used the borium on the toes and on the heels. But normally I just take a St. Croix shoe and I shape it and I put it on the mule. But I in these rocks and stuff, it really does fine. I did find that my shoes would last a little bit more longer, but the price of the borium ended up, and the cost of and the time of putting it on didn't work so well. So just plain old good St. Croix shoes, and shoe every about 8 weeks, and make sure you trim so that you've got a balanced shoulder.
Awesome. Thanks, Kevin. Appreciate that question. Here's the next one, and this one came in last week, and I actually didn't know the answer, so I was glad to hear it from you, and I went ahead and I added it to the list here, and Cindy kind of chimes in about it as well, talking about we always talk about horse saddles on mules, and you don't want to do it, but what about putting a mule saddle on a horse?
Well, I had a guy call me from Utah one time, and he was a trainer. And he started training mules, and so he started seeing he had problems, so he bought my saddle. And he said, man, that saddle's so comfortable. He said, I want to start using it on my horses. And I said, no, don't do that. You got to remember that the skeletal structure of that mule is the donkey. The skeletal structure of the horse is the horse, period. So I told him what it's going to do is bridge, because it's a little bit more straighter, which just turned up in the front on my bars. And sure enough, he called me about 4 months later from the hospital with a broken collarbone. The horse finally had enough and bucked him off. So pads don't work. Just buy the horse saddle, put it on the horse. Buy my saddle, put it on the mule. Period.
Yeah, it comes back to just that concept of the bone structures are different.
Yeah. And the big thing, Dave, is what people don't get in their mind. They think they can put the saddle on there, and the mule goes, okay. And then they ride it a while, and the mule's okay. And then finally the mule's had enough, and they step away from you. They kick at the saddle. I had one of my friends that he saw my clinics, and he saw my saddles on these animals, and I talked about him. And then he found this mule company that made mule saddles for a little less money. So he thought, well, I'll just get one of those saddles. He saved some money. That's okay. Well, next thing I know, I get a phone call from him. He'd been in the hospital, got bucked off his mule. And what had happened was he'd been riding this saddle for a couple years. And then he went down to Tennessee from Ohio to go on a long 10-day ride. Well, that 10-day ride, it finally showed up. And that mule, about the 5th day, finally bucked him off.
Yep. So there you go.
Yeah.
Answers that question. So the next question that I have, it's a topic that I had set up, and Regina Robinson just chimed in, and she's asking about it. But before I get into that, Bruce Lawless joined in. He says, hello, Bruce, glad to have you. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Yeah.
The question is, Regina chimes in. She says, "Hi, Steve. I'm joining late, but I saw that you were talking about cinches. How tight do you cinch a mule front and back, cinch the same tightness?" So before we get to her answer, I've got my question, which is gonna lead in great to hers.
Yeah.
One, how do you measure for cinches? And then two, what length should those cinches be? So can you do that? How do you measure, and then talk about the length that it actually should be, and then we'll get into how tight they need to go.
Okay, so we're going to take a soft rope, and we're going to go around the middle where the front cinch would go, and we're going to go around the back end where the back cinch would go. And what we're going to do is we're going to then measure that length. So let's just say that that length measures 100 inches. So half of that's going to be 50 inches, and then cut back 10 inches, and you'll have it. Now, an easy way of doing it is like this. I say a 14-hand mule up to about 15 hands could go from a 28-inch cinch on the front to a 32-inch cinch on the back. Your 15-hand mules would be a 34-inch cinch on the front and a 38-inch cinch on the back, and go from there. But here's the problem. I have had this past year especially some mules that were really overly fat, and they had to put longer cinches on them. So what I want to see done, let's just look at it this way. Here's my bottom D-ring on the saddle, my D-ring on the cinch. I would like to see 14 to 16 inches from D-ring to D-ring. That'll give you a pretty good idea. Now, my saddles are going to be a little bit more different placement of the D-ring than your average saddle. So hopefully that'll give you an idea. Hey, Dave, I don't hear you. Nope. Nope.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
There we go. So cinches it's one of those things that I've heard you talk about several times, and even listening to you now, I still don't necessarily get it. It might be something that we'll have to do visually, but I just want to use that as an opportunity to say, a lot of these things, it takes time to understand. A lot of these things, sometimes it takes actually being there and getting with Steve at a clinic and having him show you, right there while you're there. So if anybody's watching and we're kind of going through these questions and answering them, and you still don't get it, it doesn't make sense, and you feel like, man, he answered my question specifically and I still don't get it, don't feel bad. I've been hearing Steve talk for well over a decade now, and I haven't gotten tired of it yet. It's still a lot of fun, but there's a lot of things that I still just don't get. So even as we're dialoguing about, cinches and saddles, sometimes it just takes that right moment for it to click, right, Steve?
Yeah, exactly. But here's the other thing. On YouTube, we have a couple ladies that brought their mules over. They'd had all kinds of people give them all kinds of ideas, and they were still having saddle issues. And they came over, and I rigged the saddles up. You can see it on YouTube. Those two gals are from California, and I don't want to mention their names, but you'll see it on YouTube and this sort of thing. Anyway, you'll see that, and it depends on the rider and the type of mule, but you'll see how tight I make them. And then you'll also see the rider get on and off without the saddle moving. And then you'll see me actually take my arm and put it between the cinch and the body, and that's how loose that front cinch is. And then I show folks on the back cinch I can actually slide my hand in. And I ask them, do you feel comfortable? And they said, yeah. Can you move it around side to side? They said, yeah. They got on and off without any problem. So it's going to come down to this. It's going to come down to you not grabbing on hold of the horn and the cantle at the same time to get yourself up. And folks, use a step stool or a fender or a picnic table or something to get on and off with. I'm 5'6", so I always put my mules down in a low spot, and then I climb in the stirrup, And so, Eric Palmer, he is actually, I think he's got a video someplace on YouTube that I've seen it. He actually he said people kept complaining, saying Steve's saddle couldn't fit all these different mules. He took and put the saddle pad on, put the saddle on, and never even cinched it up and climbed in there. He said, there you go. There's the proof is right there,
I've seen that
So
one. I'm going to try and find it and put the link to the video in the comments section so people can see for themselves. Eric, if you're still
yeah,
watching, love you, man. Thanks so much. Appreciate
you
that.
bet.
Anna Curry says, Steve, sorry I can't attend now, but I do have a question about mules. Anyway, do mules make excellent guard animals like donkey or an emu? I am in animal science class, rats. So she can't watch. She's in animal science class right now, but she wants to know, do they make guard animals like a donkey or an emu?
They do pretty good. The problem is for a guard animal, especially around cattle, and this is where I've seen it more than anything else. I've actually seen my own personal mules kill calves, and they do it because they mother up to the baby and keep the baby separate from the cow, and then literally starve the calf. Now, if we watch on YouTube, we see in Brazil, this guy get off his mule, go over and start working the calf, and the mule keeps the calf, keeps the cow away from the guy who's working the calf. And that is natural instinct, folks. That's not trained. All right. I've done this same thing myself, where I roped a calf and I tied him down and I doctored him and this sort of thing. At the same time, my mule kept the cow away, and they do it naturally. So they don't make as good as donkeys do, but, once in a while you'll find a mule that'll do good. I don't know anything about sheep or goats. I don't. I know herdsmen in this area here that actually use their mules, but they use dogs to keep the protection away. So, end result, if it was me, I would test it for quite a while, and I've even seen donkeys attack small babies and this sort of thing. So you just got to be careful. The big problem is, Dave, we take the word donkey and we put it all in the pail. All donkeys do this. We can't do that. All mules do this. That's like saying all Christians do this because of the word Christian. Not. Absolutely not. Hopefully that helped you.
Absolutely. So real quick, you said, Christian, how was your Easter? Can you hear me there, Steve?
Yeah. Oh, are you asking me?
Yeah, I'm asking you. How was your Easter?
My Resurrection Sunday was awesome. I just it's like opening a new package every time for Christmas. To know that I got a Savior that done that for me is phenomenal. It was awesome.
Yeah, one of the things in the service where I was at my church out in Mesa, the pastor said, he was talking about love, and he said, a lot of times we think the opposite of love is hate, and it's really not. It's selfishness. If you want to look at if you want to look at the ultimate act of love, it was the ultimate act of selflessness, with Jesus dying on the cross. And
Yeah.
so it was a pretty special, there's been some cool stuff going on in my life, and so it was great Easter Sunday. That line really resonated with me. So I figured, hey, you brought up Christ, and so we ought to just say something here real quick. So hopefully that helps you there, Anna. And Anna, I did for you. I went ahead and I posted in the comments. I tagged you. About 40 minutes is where we talked about that, so hopefully that'll help you. Yolanda has been very active in the comment section, so thank you, Yolanda. Appreciate that. She says, Steve, I have news for you. My husband is finally convinced that it must be a saddle specially made for mules. So I'm going to save up. I'm going to get the cowboy saddle and the britchin, and then she goes in all caps, yes! How about that?
Now, is Yolanda, is she the one in Spain?
Netherlands.
Netherlands. Well, maybe I better come to the Netherlands and deliver that saddle, huh?
Well, you know what? She said in the stream already, in the comment section, she says we don't have mule people out here. We don't have mule clinics, mule clinicians, so might be something to think about. The next question that I want to ask you has to do with feeding programs. And so this one comes from Jeff on Facebook. He says, I have had my 2 Mollies for a year, and I'm still unsure what I should be doing for a feeding program. Did I say breeding program? I meant feeding program. They started out in really poor condition with ribs and spine sticking out. They are looking good now, but I think I might be giving them too much good feed. They have fairly poor attitudes and don't like to be caught. Once caught, they are fine, but they are really snorty and turn away from me until I get the halter on them. I'm feeding Timothy hay along with 4 cups per day of crimped oats and 2 cups a day of equine senior. I also feed a couple of tablespoons of corn oil each day. What do you have to say there, Steve?
Well, number one thing, we always want to think about our feeding program. Number one thing, make sure you get your dental work done. Every year, if the teeth are correct, they are going to correctly grind their feed so that it maintains a good, clean body, period. All right? The next thing, Timothy hay's nice. The downside of Timothy hay, it can be pretty heavy in carbohydrates. I was actually talking to a veterinarian yesterday in Utah, and I told her how strong I was on getting teeth done, and then again on watching the feed and being careful about feeding. Mules cannot stand prosperity. You get that type of an attitude, not wanting to be caught, not wanting to be around you, comes from feeding carbohydrates. Your carbohydrates, your grains, especially don't feed whole oats. That's for fattening, okay? They don't need the oats unless they're working. So I'm getting ready to go to work. I'm saddling up my mule. I put my morale on their head. They can have all they want while I'm saddling. Once I'm done saddling, I pull the morale off. I put the bit on, and I go ride, and I burn that feed off. Time and time again, I tell folks they cannot stand prosperity. They don't need the grain. Folks, don't feed them the grain. They don't need it, okay? They can get enough carbohydrates, protein, zinc, A, B, and C's and everything out of their feed. So that's what I would do. If you get go read my article, Mules Can't Stand Prosperity. And that's exactly what you're saying is exactly what you're going to run into.
So I'll go ahead. I'm looking it up right now. I'll put a link to the Mules Can't Stand Prosperity article in the comment section so people can check it out. So the next, that was feeding. Now we're going to talk breeding. The question that I've got comes from, this one's Kenny on Facebook. Dave, would you ask Steve about me breeding a maiden 16-year-old Tennessee walking horse mare? She's pretty sound, but I don't know if her age is a factor. I want a gaited mule just because I have a spinal cord surgery, and I can use the smooth ride. I found that gaited donkeys aren't all that large. I'm hoping for a gaited mule. Do you know any large gaited mules? And this goes hand in hand with a question that Kenny was asking here in the comment section. He was asking if there's any age limit on the mare, and he's asking about to get a gaited mule as well. So what do you have to say there?
Well, I've actually had up to a 21-year-old mare that was maiden that I bred. And of course, that was several years ago, and she did fine. It's all going to depend on what your veterinarian says. When he looks her over, when he does all the testing and stuff, he can absolutely tell you. Don't just stick him with a jack and say, okay, I'm going to get a mule. Let your vet look at it. Let your mule, let him look at the pelvis, everything it needs to do, then make a decision, especially when it comes down to a maiden. That's important. I'm going to also tell you that gaited isn't all that great of a deal, folks. I mean, it's nice that they got a smooth ride, but you got to remember that mule's got a natural single foot, and they shuffle down the trail. It's awesome. I can't tell you how many people I've had in the saddle and have sore backs and things like this, and be riding my mules and say, wow, it feels good. Uncle Bud used to always say when his back was out, he'd say, get me on my mule and I'll be all right shortly, you know. But, you know, folks, I hate to see you spend the money for gaited. It's nice, but you get out in these rocks, you get up in these mountains, and that gaiting, it doesn't do a bit of good. They're going to go slow. They're going to watch what they're doing, and you get just as smooth a ride, I would say equal, because I've had fox trotters, I've had Tennessee walkers, I've trained every kind of Peruvian passos. I'm trying to think of some of the other breeds there. Mountain. Anyway, I've either rode or did training on about every kind you can imagine, and I still can tell you that smooth ride, just the natural gait of the mule itself, is pretty awesome without having to spend the extra money.
I was back on the Trail Riding with Confidence clinic in March. I was talking with one of the participants, and he was telling me about the first time he had ever ridden a mule. And he said he had been a horse person his whole life. And he went out, and I think it was one of his buddies said, "Hey, I got this mule. Do you want to ride this mule? We could go out." He said, "Yeah, that's fine." And so he said he wasn't expecting much, got on the mule, went out, and he was forever changed. He goes, "Wow, that was the smoothest ride I've ever had." And immediately started looking at getting himself a mule.
Yep. Yeah, it's pretty awesome. I mean, look what they use at the Grand Canyon.
Yeah.
You know,
for a reason.
I can't tell you how many people have said they had bad backs and stuff, and I'm wondering why you're going down. And they come back up. They said, "I can't believe I didn't have any back problems." You know.
Kenny follows up. He says, "Do gaited jacks exist over 15 hands?"
Yes, they do. They're mammoths. There's gaited jacks right here, of course, the United States. The Pega donkey, which is South African donkey, can be over 15 hands. In Brazil, we see a lot of the Pega donkey being used, and they are very gaited, and they breed to a Magalina Masador, which is a horse very similar to a foxtrotter, and it's an awesome ride. When I was in Brazil in '06 training and teaching them how, and then in 16 as well, it was awesome to get out there in that cobblestone and hear that beautiful sound of them feet hitting on that cobblestone and just moving just really fast. But when we got into the tough trails, they slowed right up.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then to get a gaited mule, is a gaited jack necessary?
No, just, what you really want to do is try to build a fine bone if at all possible. So I kind of like my standards for my breeding of my jacks. And AI, folks, AI is far better than live cover. It's easier on the mare. It's easier on the jack. Just find a jack that you like, get an AI straw, and have the vet popper, and we're done. Personally, my favorite jacks are out of Black Bart, which is actually originally from Christ White's stock there in Canada. And there's a beautiful jack called Windy Ridge Maximilian, and he's owned by a gal up in Bozeman, Montana. And awesome jack, turn out awesome babies. But anyway, AI, that's the best way to do it. Artificial insemination.
So Eileen chimed in. She says, "I'm thrilled because I found an equine dentist in our area. So we're happy for her. Anything that owners need to be doing when they've got a dentist working on their animal and anything like that. Anything that they need to be doing just to be, in step with the dentist, make sure everything's been getting done according to plan."
Well, I always tell folks, take your hand on the bottom jaw, take your hand on the nose, rake it back and forth, and listen to it, and make note of what that sounds like. Then once that veterinarian is there, ask questions, folks. That veterinarian should take more than enough time to answer your questions, tell you what's wrong with the animals and this sort of thing. And then when they take the spectrum out of the mouth, listen to the sound. That's really important. But most of the time, if you get a qualified dental surgeon, you should have no problem at all. I can take and do one. It's easy. Open up their mouth and run a file in there, and it does a good job, and I've done it for years. But your best thing to do is to balance first, get it balanced, and then you can take and do their teeth every year and go pretty easy.
Very good. Kenny says, "Hey, thank you, Steve. I'm honored you answered." Kenny, absolutely, right?
That's right. We're here.
Yolanda's being a sassy gal tonight. She goes, "Steve, how does your lovely wife cope with all these mules around you?"
Yeah. Well, she's kind of learned to work her way around it. I've been married to her 50 years now, come July 10th, and it's amazing. But I can tell you, now folks are going to go when I tell them this, but I actually have not been on a mule for 3 years, and I got on a mule for the first time last week down at Randy Figgins' ranch, and I took my border collie puppy down there, Jess, and he worked about a 2,500-pound bull, which they could not get out, and they couldn't get moving. And I rode a mule over there, and Randy rode a horse, and we had a couple other folks in horses, but it felt so good to sit in the saddle and ride, you know. My last mule went to Kauai, Hawaii. That was Tumbleweed, TW. And hey, I've got an invitation. I'm going to Kauai, Hawaii, and doing a clinic there. And I'm going to Molokai, Hawaii, and I've got some clients there that they've got my mules.
Alaska?
They've got my saddles. Huh?
Malachi, Alaska?
No, I am going to Kodiak, Alaska.
Oh, that's right, Kodiak, Alaska.
But this is Molokai, Hawaii. It's a small island, and they've got a mule ride down to an old leopard colony, and they've been getting rid of their old saddles and said, boy, Steve, your saddles, you know, my clients are comfortable, yada, yada. Anyway, I'm going to take that ride, and I'm going to video it. So we're going to have some awesome video of Hawaii, both in Kauai and Molokai as well. It's going to be a lot of fun. So that's some clinics that I'm going to be doing up and coming.
That'll be great. So we just got a couple minutes left here. And the thing that I want to ask you about now is, what's the first thing that owners need to do to train a mule? Where is the absolute best place to start training a mule?
My first thing I do is start with come along hitch, come along hitch, come along hitch. If they respect the halter with that come along hitch to start with, and they do all their foundational training, when they go to lead them across the bridge, when they go to put them in a trailer, when they go across water, anything, because of their foundational training and their respect for that halter, they'll do it. First thing you got to do is get your groundwork done. The riding, that's the easy part, but you get your groundwork done first.
Yeah, it's amazing. Everybody wants to jump towards the riding or jump towards the driving, and really you don't get the benefit of that. At least what we've seen, you don't get the benefit of that until that ground training is done and done well. And you get the respect for the halter, you get the relationship with the rider. You have a good timing right there. I know that's another big thing is timing. We've had people out on the ranch where you were having her, learn how to catch her mule in the pen, and you were trying to help her understand her timing, and so you were trying to get her to catch it from the left side. Is the left side the near side?
Yes, sir.
And then the right side is the off side. So you have had her doing both, and you had her with her legs, trying to get that timing correct to catch that mule. And then in the most recent clinic, or in the Why Does My Mule Do That, you had the young gal up riding with her reins, and she was having to get her timing right. So timing's a huge part of it too, isn't it? Yes,
and you get that timing on the end of that lead rope, because eventually that lead rope is going to go into the reins, and away you go. Christina Snellenberg, I think she's still on there. She'll remember a clinic that we did in South Carolina, and how important it was that I did groundwork. And she had this mule that was really snorty and kind of ornery to get along with, and boy, she did a great job with it. And so groundwork. I can't tell you how many people I talk to on a weekly basis. They tell me about some of the problems, and I say, look, go back to the ground, put the come along hitch on, and start training.
Awesome. So the last question that I have written down here has to do with something called stifle problems. I've never heard of, I don't know what stifle is, what a stifle problem is. So here's the question. Hi, Steve. My 7-year-old mule has recently, the last day, has had trouble with his stifles locking and then snapping loose. Do mules have a tendency toward stifle problems? Is there something I can do to help with this? It showed up the morning we found one of our horses trapped under our board fence and tangled with the electric fence, so he ended up dying, and the mule was visibly upset by all that. He maybe ran or moved all night long. Could this be an injury just showing up now, or is it likely a conformational problem? So let's talk first about what stifled is, and then go into answering the questions. Does that sound good?
You bet. It's kind of hard to without showing you, but it's in the hips, and when the back leg, let's just say the left leg, starts to come up, all of a sudden it catches, and they can't put it down. It's kind of like a cramp, okay? But there's tendons and this sort of thing, which you can cut, which a veterinarian that's qualified can cut and actually help out a lot. It is not prevalent in just mules. It's in mules and horses. And it can be lots of things. It could be they slipped on ice and stretched it that way. It could be a conformation problem as well. It could be getting in a lot of mud and really fighting it and it get caught. And now once it happens, and those tendons get stretched and that leg gets turned, unfortunately, it'll keep on getting worse. I hate to hear a 7-year-old has it. Sometimes they get caught in a fence, and that does it. A lot of different ways, really. I hate to hear about their horse being dying like that. That's tough, my goodness. But there's not much you can do. Once that happens, there's not shoeing. Yes, you can cut the tendons like I was talking about with the vet. But there's not any new things out there that I'm aware of right now to help that stifle problem. Because what's going to happen is this. They're going to go good for a while, Dave. And their leg's going to be moving and this sort of thing. And then one day they're coming down off a steep trail or something like that. And that thing get caught and hung up and they have a big wreck. And it's not a pretty thing.
Yeah.
And so, get your vet out. Talk to them, talk about maybe clipping those tendons, and try it from there.
So hopefully that helps out a little bit. Thanks for sharing that. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
So going through here, we're getting ready to wrap up. We have Kenny Yates. He says, Steve, sell us your come-along rope. How long and how much? So, Kenny, I'm going to put a link. I'll put 2 links in the comment section. The first one is a link to something that Steve actually put together called the Mule Ground Foundation Starting Kit, and it comes with Steve's video, Problem Mule, Building a New Foundation. It comes with a come-along rope, and it comes with a rope halter. If you come out to Steve's ranch or if you see him at any clinics, the rope halter and the come-along rope are the 2 most used tools during just about any clinic because we're fixing problems. And one thing I've heard you say, Stephen, correct me if I'm wrong, is a lot of times folks will get out there and try to start fixing problems, but without using the right tools, they might fix that one problem, but they create 3, 4, 5 additional problems that maybe don't show up right away, but will start showing up, down the trail later on, both figuratively and literally. So the come-along rope and the rope halter, along with building a new foundation, that's a bundle that Steve put together just because they go hand in hand. But I'll also put a link directly to the come-along rope in case somebody, maybe already has their rope halter, properly adjusted rope halter, and already has the DVD. They can get that. Let's see here. Robert Rhodes says, he says, thank you.
Hey, Robert.
Thank you for doing this. He says, live sessions. How often are you planning to conduct these sessions? So we haven't really talked about how long we're going to do this, but I think as long as the questions keep coming and as long as people keep watching, we'll keep doing it. Does that sound good?
Yeah. Hey, Dave, we're here to help, right? I mean, that's what I want to do. I did all that traveling for close to 20 years all over the United States, trying to show people a different way of doing it. I hope folks see that I'm not a cookie cutter, and there's a lot of things that I do that are similar to folks, but my stuff is what I've learned, So, no, I want to keep doing it as long as we get feedback and people are saying we're helping them fine, I really appreciate that. Let me touch on that come along a minute. Yeah. Dave, we need to get that one little shot up. Remember when that mule, this last clinic, I tried to pick up the foot, and I tried it 2 times, and it fought me.
Yep.
And so finally I just went over and I put the come-along rope on it, give it a couple little jerks, and I went over and picked up that back foot, and that mule just stood there.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
Look, when they respect the handler as the mule, as the head of the mule herd, and you use that come-along hitch on, folks, it makes a difference. And Dave, we need to get that video up where people can see that, because that That'll make them really think. And here, folks, another thing too is I have folks say they want to buy the rope, the come along rope. And again, I don't want to just say I'm trying to sell you stuff, but look, you know, when you use a tool, you got to know the steps how to use it so that you properly get the job done. You know, and in my videos that I use, you'll see some of it on YouTube as well. I show the steps, and it's not just steps for one mule. Again, putting everything in one pail. Sometimes there's things a little bit different. So that's why we've got the different videos to show you the YouTube stuff, the problem mule building a new foundation. It's on how to communicate, lots of different things. Oh, communicating with mule as well, you know. So those would be really helpful for him, Dave.
Yeah, I just put the links in there, so anybody who needs that, the come along rope has been a great seller, and it's just been, quite honestly, it's been a great starting tool for a lot of people who are just getting into mules and donkeys. And yeah, I actually have that clip just about ready to post up online, and I put on Instagram if anybody wanted to see that clip, if I should, you know, bump that to the head of the line, and they all wanted to see it because it was amazing. I brought a member of my team. So, you know, I run a business on the side, helping companies doing, online things like that, help Steve with his store. And so I brought someone from my team out. She had never seen you train. She doesn't know anything about mules or donkeys. But when we got to that section, she was like, what's he going to do? So she had never seen you or anybody else ever train in it. And that mule did not want to have her leg held up there. And so it was giving you grief. I think you tried 4 or 5 times before you finally said, okay, we're just going to get it. And so she didn't know what was going to happen. You grab that come along rope, put it around the nose, use that exactly the way that, you know, anybody else would use it. And she was amazed. Barb was amazed.
Yeah.
She was just like, wow, I can't believe that. Knows nothing about it, but could see the difference. It's absolutely amazing. Well, that's it for today. Eileen Easterday says, we're learning so much from you, Steve. She says my name in there. Guys, you have to know that when I'm saying something, I'm literally repeating what I've heard Steve said. So I might know a little bit, but it's all coming from Steve, and I do appreciate you doing it, Steve, and I know that everybody else does as well.
Yeah. Well, hey, I want to make sure folks come sees me at the Hoosier Expo.
Yeah.
It's an awesome expo. I try to do as much one-on-one. You don't see 10, 15 people in the arena.
Yeah.
You see one person that I'm trying to help out, and I want to work with the spectators. Folks, I travel these miles to come and help you. Please, let me help. Got these videos here, let's go. But come on, let me know what I can do to help you at these expos.
So what I'm putting here is I'm putting the link in the comment section right now to the Hoosier Expo. And what I'm going to say is if you're within several hundred miles, 700 driving miles, it is worth it to come out, to spend time, to check out. Do you already have all of the participants that you need, or are you still looking for participants for
No, I've got participants, but let me offer something here,
okay.
Dave. I'm going to offer everybody that comes up and say, hey, I saw it on your website or I saw it on YouTube and you got a knife for me. I'm going to give you a Queen Valley Mule Ranch engraved knife. All you got to do is come up and I saw you and Dave, or I saw it on YouTube, or I saw it on your website, and I'm going to hand you a knife.
I love it. I love it. That the first time we ever met, the first thing Steve said to me was, did you have trouble finding the place? I said, no, I found it okay, thanks much. The second thing he goes, you know the West was won with mules, don't you? I said, I do now. And the third thing he says is, let me give you one of my business cards. Whipped out this knife, had Queen Valley Mule Ranch with the address and the phone number and the website right on it. I said, all right, I'm going to keep this. And I still have that knife, Steve. I've got it with all my collection of pocket knives that I've built up over the year. I love that knife.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to hand one out, and I'm going to talk about this. We need to put it on the website and stuff, though, Dave. But anybody that comes up to one of my expos and says, or any one of my clinics or anything like that, and said, hey, I saw it on YouTube, or I saw it on where you and Dave were talking, give me my card. I
love it.
And I'll flip it out and I'll give it to them. I've got 100 of them there at the expo, and I'm going to pass them all out.
That's
Come
awesome.
see me. Come see me.
Folks, thanks for hanging out. We really appreciate it. You guys make these things awesome. We just show up, and we'll be excited to see you on the next one. And if you have any questions that we didn't get to, leave them in the comments section, and we will make sure to add them to the list. And until next time, God bless, and we'll see you.
We'll see you. You bet.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.